This is an interview with Yvonne Perret, author of Yat Wit Chicken Gumbo for the New Orleans Soul. So tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm a native New Orleanian, born and raised here. Grew up in the Gentilly area of the city, Chile Gentilly, out near the lakefront. And went to schools here, went to grammar school, high school, college here, went to Tulane University. I became a teacher and have spent 20 plus years in the New Orleans schools. I think I calculated one time that I've taught the Pythagorean theorem to something like 4,000 or 5,000 people. I also wrote a little bit for the Times-Picayune, for Gambit, for New Orleans Magazine, and my favorite, I've always wanted to be a writer, and my favorite thing to write is humor, and especially about things that I really love, and what I really love is the city of New Orleans. So most of the things that I've had published in the past were things about New Orleans.
And what was your inspiration for writing the book?
Well, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. But I didn't have a whole lot of time when I was teaching, and I sort of collected things along the way. And then after Katrina hit, I mean, we all went through so much, and I think I read every sad book there was about Katrina, and there were lots of them. And they were all, it was right to have written those books, and they needed to be written, and they were appropriate. But I just got to the point where I just couldn't take any more, and I said, you know what, we all came back here. This is the only city in the country where everybody who is here because they chose to come back. They chose to come to the city. So we all chose to come back, so it was time to celebrate why we came back. You know, why we worked so hard to resurrect the city, why we pressed on when the leadership failed us. There's so many good, fun, quirky, lively, zesty, partying things about this city that it was time to celebrate that again. And so that's why I wrote the book, so that we could concentrate on that for a little while.
Right. And so what is a yat?
What is a yat? I'm not sure there's an actual official definition, but there are dialects in this city, in certain areas of the city, that are different. I know my grandmother used to say we were going to rinse the oysters in the zinc. We would go to make groceries, and after we washed the dishes, we would save the dishes. So there were just different ways of saying things, and probably the most famous one was instead of saying, hi, how are you doing, people say, hey, where are you at? And so from where you at came the expression yat, to mean people who spoke with a little bit different phraseology or a little bit different dialect. I think, though, it has changed over the last few years. I think the term has become more inclusive. I mean, which one of us now hasn't screamed, who dat? And which one of us hasn't said, ain't there no more, which we probably would have attributed to a Yat dialect before. So I think the term is more inclusive, and I think any New Orleanian or anybody who's really proud of the city or embraces what the city stands for these days can consider themselves a Yat.
And so are you a genuine Yat?
I think I actually have Yat DNA in me because of my grandmother. My grandmother and my dad grew up in the 9th Ward of New Orleans, and so it's definite, genuine Yat territory. And so I think by DNA being passed down, I do have official Yat in me.
So what do you think is so unique about New Orleans?
I think what's special about New Orleans is its uniqueness. I mean, where else in the world can you get up in the morning and have a good cup of cafe au lait and beignets, and then have a muffalata for lunch, okra gumbo for dinner, and finish off the day with a nectar cream snowball with condensed milk on top? And where else can you go and spend a few hours listening to genuine live jazz, get up out of your chair, walk a few blocks down the street, and happen upon some place that's got some good Zydeco music, and after a couple of hours of that, get up again and finish the night with some really good soulful blues? I mean, there's no place else in the world. I just find myself saying only in New Orleans, and I know a lot of us do. How many times have you nodded your head and said only in New Orleans?
All the time.
That's what I think is special about the city.
That's right. So were the essays a collaboration between family and friends, or are they based on your own experiences? Or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both, but Almost every essay in here is something that I actually experienced, and of course exaggerated to make it humorous. But the basis of all the essays are things that have happened to me, or now there's an exception. There's one in there about a Nutria town hall meeting, and I personally have never been to a Nutria town hall meeting. But besides that, pretty much everything else in the book is something that happened. It's real. It's real stuff.
And if you had to pick, they're all great essays, very funny. What would your favorite essay be?
I really like the last essay in the book, Crossing Blankets, because the only problem with that answer is that that's the only essay in the book that is not humorous. But I think it says a lot about who we are as a community and as a family. I think the city is just one big family in a lot of ways. But of the humorous essays, I've gotten a lot of reaction, and probably my favorite is the lies that New Orleans parents tell their children. Just because it shows how we are just a little bit nuts, but we pass it down from generation to generation, and this is something that we embrace. For example, I'm sure you probably remember sitting in a ladder on Mardi Gras Day and your dad or your mom saying, no, the parade's just 1 block down, stay up in the ladder, don't get down now. When the truth was the parade was several blocks down.
Right.
And probably tell that to your own children, and your children will tell it to their children. And how many of us have said to our kids, oh darling, that's the most beautiful shoebox float I've ever seen. All of us have made shoebox floats in kindergarten and first grade, and all of our parents have told us it's the prettiest one they've ever seen, and of course it isn't. And that will continue generation to generation too.
So this is a book for all New Orleanians. So.
This is a book for all New Orleanians and anybody who has heard about the city and wants to share in the experience. I mean, all you have to do is love New Orleans to love this book. And I think there are things in here that you're not going to find in other books about New Orleans. It's like the eccentric, everyday experiences that make up just the celebratory spirit that we have here, the sense of community, family, tradition. And it's all celebrated in a humorous way.
Right.
And I think New Orleanians love to laugh at themselves, and this gives you a good chance to do that.
They do. Well, I certainly laughed when I read this book, and I
good.
know everyone who has read it has, because it's very relatable. So.
Yeah, I've had some wonderful responses. People have told me that they've been going through some difficult times. I'm thinking of one person in particular, and she said she picked up the book and read it. It was the first time she had laughed in a week, and that means more to me than almost anything else. So.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hope you enjoy it.